Our next session looks into what agencies will look like and how brands strategize in this new world. To talk about the future agency model, the Connected Brand Builders, is our next speaker. He is responsible for growing and managing RGA's Asia Pacific offices and has worked at the interaction of technology, strategy, and creativity across three continents for nearly 2 decades. He has been featured as Campaign Asia Pacific's 40 Under 40, awarded Asia Pacific Digital Network Agency Head of the Year, and is an industry speaker, commentator, and awards judge. Please welcome RGA Asia Pacific's EVP and Managing Director, Tuomas Peltoniemi.
Thank you very much for welcoming me to Manila. So how do you follow a session with everyone shaking around the room? Thank you, that's very, very easy. So I thought what we could do first is all sing together. No, just kidding. We're not gonna sing. So the story of RGA became in 1977 when our founder, Bob Greenberg, and his team developed a piece of software that enabled the creation of 3D animation in film. And so the iconic 3D title sequence of the original Superman movie was created, winning RGA an Oscar in the making. So ever since then, for the last 42 years, we've continued to evolve and innovate our own model to enable us to change before change happens and stay ahead of the times. So what I'm going to talk about today is what we think could be the future agency model moving forward. But before we do that, I think it's important for us to take a look at what is happening in the lives of the customers of our clients. So the important thing to look at is there's a new ruling class emerging. So even today, in this year, if we combine Gen Z and Millennials, they already represent 65% of the global population. But what's more important and interesting is that they actually are the fastest growing purchasing power generations that we've seen ever before. But, okay, need to get this clicker to work. But also, this is the generation that has the highest of expectations. And the topics that they talk about publicly are some of these topics. And we all are aware of these things, you know. The expectations that businesses are in it just for shareholder value and money are not there anymore. There's an expectation that businesses stand for these larger causes that are important in society today. And as a result of this, business as usual really is failing. So if you look at these two statistics, millennials who agree and disagree that businesses are in it for their own agendas and in it for the money rather than driving a larger cause, the inflection point happened around 2017. So this gap is becoming larger and larger. And we also don't think that marketing is the answer here, because we can't market our way out of creating an illusion that our companies and our businesses care. And at the same time, there is this widening experience gap where the expectations that people have when they interact with businesses in all of these different industries and the actual experience that they get is actually getting wider and wider. But there's good news in the horizon. The Business Roundtable in the US, where 200 of the largest companies' global CEOs meet, this August, they actually all agreed that shareholder value is no longer the key metric that they should look at their business success on. In return, they value things like, what are we doing to the society? How are we taking better care of our employees? How are we ethically treating our partners and suppliers, and so forth. In fact, one of these companies is Salesforce, whose CEO said, suggesting that companies must choose between doing well and doing good is a false choice. Successful businesses can and must do both of these things. And we think the answer to this is what we call a connected brand. Connected brands of businesses really center around an active purpose. What is the purpose of our business? And then from that purpose, they determine how that purpose comes to life in the stories that these brands say and the systems they build for them to be able to act on this purpose. And the connected brands and connected businesses are more complicated than that. They're end-to-end. So while they start with an active purpose, It goes all the way down to business model, operations, the products and services, the experiences they create, as well as the communications that they develop. But also, if you look at some of the statistics, connected brands do actually resonate. So the 5-year growth rate of the companies who create positive utility for their customers over those that purely focus on storytelling are much greater. So our point of view is that connected brands also drive profit. So if you look at different industries around the world, the actual valuation premiums for those companies that focus on some of these social causes, some of these things that are really important in the world today, are actually far greater. So our point is that connected brands are the only way to meaningfully future-proof and drive long-term growth for businesses. And therefore, if us as agencies want to create these businesses and help create these brands, it requires a different kind of agency model as well. So what I'm going to do is talk about 5 agency imperatives inspired by RGA and the RGA global model. And the first one of these is an agency built on purpose. So if we want to help create brands that center around an active purpose, us as agencies have to be built on purpose as well. And our purpose is to create a more human future. And what this means is that as technology and culture accelerate, their impact on us as people and us as businesses will also be greater. And the challenge is that we have to ensure that all the design and technology we embed for businesses has a level of humanity to it as well. So to bring this to life, we wanted to create a platform that makes our purpose actionable. And we wanted to create something that brings together people and brands to show the world that we can actually together tackle issues that really matter. So what we did was we partnered with National Geographic and Semi-Permanent in Australia to create what we call Make Good. So Make Good is an innovation accelerator for good. And the first one of these programs was centered around defying plastics. So more specifically, we wanted to bring together interesting startups and people that solve the problems of single-use plastics that end up in our oceans. So this is what we did. We get sound?
National Geographic and RGA have come together for a 3-day intense innovation lab to combat the ocean pollution plastic, which has reached catastrophic levels.
For me, the Make Good project is about doers and thinkers.
One 600 ml plastic bottle is transformed into one pair of sunglasses, including the hinges.
We work for Cool Kelp, a set of tableware or cutlery single-use products made from seaweed.
We looked at how could we change what is the largest used construction material on the planet, which is concrete.
Carapac makes home compostable plastic alternatives out of crustacean shell food waste.
We've created wall badfish hampering for body surfing. It's Australia's first product made from ocean plastics collected here in Australia.
We've been able to bring together a whole collective of different minds and experts.
Doesn't matter where you come from, how discriminated you are, or you feel that you are. It's just a matter of getting up every day and deciding to be the one.
And at the end of the day, if you're looking to change behaviour, it has to be at a personal level because nothing else will motivate real change.
It's been really nice to see that the team has been sharing ideas, everyone's kind of supporting one another. I think it's something you only really get when everyone's kind of here for one common purpose.
We're going to overcome these great challenges, especially environmentally. Time has to be now, and this is the best time to develop this.
So the second agency imperative is solving problems at the right altitudes. If we go back to this connected brand model, We actually believe that creativity can impact every level of a business. Creativity can help solve the active purpose problem that a lot of brands have, but also creativity can be used in things like operational models and business models and so forth. And when we look at this altitude of problem solving, often in our industry, if we look at agencies, we solve problems at these three levels. We solve problems through advertising, marketing, and brand. But we actually believe that there is a whole lot of opportunity for there's a lot of opportunities for us to involve creativity and creative thinking at the other altitudes of business as well. So these are experience, distribution, the services the companies develop and create, the products, the people, and the business models that we involve. And to bring this to life through an example, this is something that we've done for PepsiCo, where looking at their product portfolio, we identified a gap and created essentially a new product using creativity and a new brand from scratch and launched it into the world exclusively using social media. A very fun brand, obviously aimed at a certain sort of demographic. But what's interesting to see here is that this particular brand went from 0 to 5% market share in a relatively competed space in only 4 weeks. So some of the commercial results are really interesting when it comes to this case. So the other thing is that these connected ideas take intersections of all different kinds of talent to make them happen. And historically, agencies have paired together these sort of classic campaign teams of art director and copywriter, for example. Or we've looked at classic product design teams that have experienced designers and technologies together. We think that we get a lot more interesting results when we pair people from very different backgrounds together. So what if we pair together copywriters, experienced designers, and creative technologists? Or what if we pair together experienced designers, verbal designers, and AI experts? We can create some really, really interesting outcomes for brands and companies. Outcomes like this, where Samsung wanted to launch one of their new phones to a completely new audience. We created a character inside of Fortnite rather than launching a campaign, driving a 17% increase in sales. And this came to life by having some unprecious creatives, some strategists who really understand influencers, as well as people who play way too much Fortnite to really understand the motivations of people who play these games. So these very different kinds of outcomes that we haven't necessarily done before in the past. Or what if we created a completely new way of to look at banking for millennials? So this is a bank that was literally built from scratch, based on some insights of the audience, based on designs, and was able to get over 1 million millennials to join this very traditional bank over the course of the first year. And this took some spectacular brand designers, some really deep product experts in financial services, as well as a very deep bench of technologists to make this idea happen. Or in Tokyo, where we worked with Shiseido to bring a deep tech installation into play that really explores the sort of confronting people or helping people confront their fears around aging. And something like this comes to life when you have a client with a big ambition, you have creative technologists, experiential experts, as well as a lot of beauty R&D to your use. So the fourth area is around facilitating unusual connections. So the reality that I think all agencies have to face today is that we can't always make everything. We need to bring in people from outside of our organizations and really facilitate these connections. So for us to be able to make that happen, we launched RGA Ventures. So RGA Ventures is a way for us to bring the brightest new startups, new companies, and new ideas for our clients and bring them all together. And RGA Ventures is really a model that brings together themed venture programs. We've had this model running for 5 years now, 15 different programs ranging from e-commerce to IoT, all the way out to blockchain, which is running in our Oregon, Portland office at the moment. But what's really interesting about this is the track record of RGA Ventures, because of the nature of this sort of creative capital that we put into these companies, is spectacular. So we've had 105 companies come through these programs in the last 5 years, and 94 of those are still active. So the track record is incredible. In fact, the aggregate valuation of all of these portfolio companies is north of $2.5 billion US today. And in the process, we've helped create over 3,100 jobs in these companies. But really the benefit for clients of agencies with models like this is that it enables us to bring interesting companies and solutions together to really create new products and new revenue models. So the example I'll use is we took 2 companies that came through some of our sports ventures programs. The first company is called Shot Tracker. What they enable you to do is track player statistics in real time. So we took their platform and their knowledge of tracking players real time, and we combined that with a company called KeyMotion. So what KeyMotion does is AI-assisted video capture. So automatically kind of having the right frames and following the right action so that you can very easily set up live video streams for some of the games that you might not be able to see otherwise on TV. And we brought these companies together, so bringing Shot Tracker, bringing KeyMotion, and Fox Sports together to create what we call the Autonomous Broadcast Network. So this really became the stepping stone for the digital product for Fox Sports, which is Go Sports. And creating a completely new viewing experience of not only being able to stream sports live onto your phone, but also being able to see all the player statistics and everything in real time as they happen while these games are being streamed. So this created a new way for Fox Sports to monetize their own streaming service by combining these companies. And historically, in the past, RGA would have probably tried to build some of these things ourselves, but now because all of these things exist, we bring them together and curate them under a solution for a client in an interesting way. And the final thing that I'll talk about is make collaboration your superpower. So we have 4 things that we've built ourselves internally into the company that enable our staff and our people to collaborate in different ways. So the first is, how do we connect better? So how do we discover talent from around the world so that we don't just look at who's available in our offices, but genuinely look at who's right for a particular client problem around the world? How do we curate teams together better? And how do we find and view work that's happened around the world so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time we have a client problem somewhere in the world? How do we collaborate better? So what are the tools we can use to communicate better with each other? How do we manage knowledge better? And how do we share and store files in a way that's accessible and editable to everybody around the world? How do we operate better? What's the right project and financial model for an agency? How do we manage relationships, and how do we unify search so that anyone has access to anything that we need for a client problem? And how do we inform people better about things? When you have newcomers joining the company, when we evolve our operating model, how do we make sure people can learn about RGA, stay up to date, and get inspired by some of the things that we do day to day around the world? So to be able to do this, let's go back one more. We've created what we call RGA OS. So RGA OS is a collection of technologies and tools that we've built ourselves over the years, and also a collection of our business model, as well as some of the tools that we've chosen from around the world to be able to collaborate in new ways. So within this model, we have what we call a global talent management function. This function's job is to find the right people for the right client problems from any of our 18 offices around the world. Really key to the success of agencies, I think, in the future is being able to bring people from diverse backgrounds together in regions where you might not be able to do that in the past. So that's where the global P&L really helps. And then, curating some of these tools and technologies to really be able to do things in a way that we haven't necessarily done before. So in this RGA OS, everything you see on the left side are tools and technologies we've developed ourselves for ourselves. And then on the right side are a collection of tools that we use on a daily basis to be able to enable and power our business in the best possible way. So with that, what do we think the future agency model is going to look like? We believe a future agency is an agency built on purpose. You have to have this purpose that you're driving towards so that you can also create this purpose for the brands and businesses you work with. We also believe that a future agency is an agency that doesn't just solve creative problems and communications and advertising problems. We believe a future agency can solve problems at all kinds of different altitudes. Ultimately, creativity is the unfair advantage to a lot of these things that we do in our industry, and we have to be able to employ that at different altitudes of client problems. We also believe that a future agency builds these connected brands that don't just focus on what they say, but also focus on what they do for the world, for the people, for their own employees, and the systems they build to enable that. We also believe that the future agency is an agency that facilitates these unusual connections. It is okay to not be able to do everything yourself. It's bringing together these interesting companies and people from different perspectives that often ends with some interesting solutions that our clients might not have thought about. And we also think that collaboration around the world, rather than worrying about individual markets and offices, is the future. And really, an agency that uses collaboration as its superpower can become a lot more powerful than they might have been before. So with that, where do we think RGA's future is going to go into? We want to be a collection of all of these different things. Not all of these different things are capabilities or functions, but they're different attitudes as well. They're different ways of looking at problems and different ways of looking at ourselves, and not being afraid to try new things, bring new partners into our ecosystem, and try new things for our brands. So with that, thank you very much, and thank you for welcoming me into Manila.